Hello, everybody. Welcome back to How Come. This episode is going to be about IVF with Lindsey Metselaar, who is the host of We Met at Acme. Lindsey was one of our first guests of all time in season 1 about 6 years ago. It is now October 19th, 2023. Content warning, I'm about to speak about what's going on in the world for about the next 5 minutes. It has nothing to do with the rest of the episode, so if that is something that you do not want to listen to right now, or maybe you're listening to it years from now, feel free to skip ahead to the 6.5 minute mark. And if you do want to listen to it, stick around. Before we get into the episode, I just want to say that if you are feeling horrible right now, you're not alone. There are a lot of people suffering. There have been tons of lives lost to the point that it doesn't even feel right to make content right now. That being said, there have been a lot of people making content that has been super inflammatory and degrading. We have done an episode on Israel and Palestine. It's called How Understanding with Iman El-Husseini and Jess Solomon. They are a lesbian, Palestinian, and Jewish couple. You can listen to that episode if that is subject matter that you want to hear more about today. But I have been wildly disturbed by the amount of hatred on my feed, by people saying exterminate all the Jews, by people saying exterminate all Palestinians, exterminate all Israelis, exterminate all Muslims. I know a lot of you are not saying this. A lot of our listeners are extremely nuanced and very sensitive. But if you are in the place where you are thinking it is fine to decimate any group of people based on the actions of extremist governments and extremist groups, it doesn't feel humanitarian. I'm not saying don't decimate Hamas. Hamas is unequivocally bad. Many people who they are supposedly fighting for will say that and have said that. Many Israelis will say that the current Israeli government does not represent them. And the only place that I've been finding solace in this past few weeks, the thing that I have been really trying to focus on is Jews speaking out for Palestinians, Palestinians speaking out for Jews, marches like the Israeli mothers and Palestinian mothers had for peace. I have really focused on mothers and parents specifically, not just because this episode is about motherhood and parenthood, but imagine growing a child, raising a child, and then having them have to live in a world where they are scared forever, having them live in a world where bombs are dropped around them, having them live in a world where they might grow up without you or you might live past them. It's horrifying, it's upsetting, and I truly feel like people are more developed than this. We should have come to the place in the world where we could all get along. I know that's too flowery, and I know that even if humans weren't here, animals will still be killing each other. It just is so upsetting to see a lot of people dehumanizing entire groups or being okay with the idea of other groups being obliterated, or using this conflict as a way to justify their already existent Islamophobia or anti-Semitism, or both. There are people that they hate everyone and they're just like, yeah, let them blow each other up. They're different than us. There's also governments who just want to make money off of this stuff. There is money in war. There's not a lot of money in peace. If anyone has a viable solution that hasn't been able to be thought of by any of the people involved in the last 75 years, I would still love to hear it, as long as it doesn't involve kill all blanks. And I don't want to go too far into it on this episode, but please verify your news sources. Don't just go by memes on the internet. Try to find unbiased news. Reuters is a great place to start. And try to have compassion for others and yourself. You might have had visceral reactions that you're like, oh, I actually don't believe that anymore. That's okay. We're always learning, growing, And there are so many people who do get along here in the US and around the world, and even in Israel and Palestine. So send relief to people who are suffering.
There are unspeakable things that have happened, and if any of it has inspired you to speak up against the abuse of children, like, it sucks that it took this to do it, but it's good. You keep advocating for children. If any of this sparked you to want to stand up against sexual violence, that's great. Please keep standing up for that here. There is tons that happened here. If any of this makes you stand up for LGBT issues, great. There are so many issues happening here. If you are against war crimes, call your representatives and try to take stock of the people in your life who you've always gotten along with, despite your differences. I am not an expert in this stuff. I'm not even an expert at this topic of this podcast. You know, I started as a very ignorant person. That's okay to admit. But I don't want to take up any more of Lindsay's episode. We did not discuss this. We recorded it way before. These are my views that I've said so far. So again, if you want to hear a great conversation, the episode is How Understanding. But yeah, this episode is going to focus on new life when there has been tons of life lost. And if you don't want to listen to it yet, put it on the back burner. If it doesn't serve you, that's okay. But if you are a person trying to conceive, or you know people trying to conceive, or you just want to know more about IVF, this is a great episode to begin with. I hope you like this episode. If you don't, or if you have commentary on anything I've said thus far, I would like respectful conversation, just because the world is hard enough, life is hard enough, but with a little more compassion, things might look up. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help, 'cause I can't do it by myself. I wanna jizz.
Today's guest is one of our first guests, and she has had many life changes since we last had her on. You guys, welcome back the host of the podcast We Met at Acme, Lindsey Metselaar. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me at your marital home. I'm so excited to be here. And like I was saying, you have had a lot of life changes. You got married, you got pregnant. Congratulations to both.
Thank you.
And we were just talking about this before. We both quit smoking weed.
We did.
You a little sooner than me.
Yeah. Well, how long has it been for you now?
Like 56 days.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Incredible.
How long is it for you now?
It'll be 5 years at the end of this month.
Oh my God. That's huge. What was the impetus for you?
Oof. I mean,
could be several
so
things.
many things. Yeah. But I think the main one was that I wanted to stop and I couldn't for some reason.
Yeah.
It was like a baseline for me. It just like got me normal, and like I wasn't even getting high. I was just like becoming someone that like, you know, was a tolerable like person, not even.
Mm-hmm.
And I would wake up and I would like not want to smoke, but I would smoke. And I just felt like it was controlling my life at that point.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys remember this, but we mentioned briefly on Lindsay's first episode that we used to run a little Twitter account together and Instagram called Stoner Girl Problem. And it was like not the basis, but like a big part of a lot of our friendships were like rotting.
Oh, totally.
Like we would
in
go
college, like that's all we would do.
Yeah. And like even after college, when I would go to your house or whatever, and like I remember there was one time that like I came over and like we didn't immediately smoke, and I remember being like, when are we gonna fucking smoke? You know, like and like having that like weird like need to feeling.
Right. And you know that something's wrong when you're smoking with someone else.
Yeah.
But you just wish they weren't there so you could have more of the joint.
So many times. And getting very nitpicky over like, that person's taking my weed.
Or they're taking too long. They're telling a story and holding on to it.
I started making people roll personal joints.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't want to have to wait on you. I also don't want to like yell at you.
Right.
Was it difficult to stop smoking? Did you go cold turkey?
It was difficult. I went cold turkey. I also like went to a group meeting.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I didn't do it alone.
Okay.
I think if I had to do it alone, it would have been more difficult. All of my friends, like not all of them, but most of my close friends smoked just as much as me at the time. And it was like how we all hung out.
Yeah.
And so I just had to I had to remove myself from certain environments.
Yeah.
Well, I want you to answer the same questions. Like, why did you stop? And was it the same reasons that I said?
Yeah.
And then was it hard? And also no more vaping.
I know. I need to stop.
No, but like actually in my home.
Really?
Yeah, but I love you.
Oh my God. Okay. Challenge. I stopped because I was so depressed, and I went to my therapist and I was like, this is what's going on. And she was like, well, you're like smoking like a lot. Like,
You were honest with her?
oh yeah. And the first 2 weeks were really tough because it fucked my body. Like I was not hungry at all. Did you have the same thing?
Oh yeah. No, I didn't. I barely ate. I would have like a bag of chips a day. It was insane.
Yeah. And
I couldn't sleep.
couldn't sleep.
Have you been having dreams?
Okay, amazing question, because do you mean in general or
Like since
weed dreams?
Because I never dreamt when I was smoking weed every night.
Oh, I dream all the time. It's always been like a huge thing for me, but I have been having dreams lately where I'm fiending for weed. Like not just like, oh, I'm in a dream and I'm smoking weed. I'm in the dream and I am looking through my bags for old roaches to combine, and then I'll smoke it in the dream and wake up and be like, I fucked up.
Yeah, that's really scary. That it's called a using dream.
Have you had them?
Yes, many, many times. I still have them today.
And does it feel any better?
It feels very real, and then you wake up and you're like, oh wow, I'm amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, I didn't do that.
Yeah. And are your other like how often are using dreams versus normal dreams?
They're much more rare now.
Okay.
When I was where you are, they were very frequent.
Yeah, it's like out of 2 months, I've only had 3 of those dreams, but they were all the same week. And I was like, something's going on.
Yeah. It's hard because it makes you like blur the reality.
Yeah.
You're like, did I smoke?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's like a dream. Have you ever had a cheating dream?
Of course.
Yeah. And
Cheating
I wake
dreams
up
are
feeling
so real.
so guilty.
Yeah.
And then Ben's like, Remy, like I do that too. I'm like, how dare?
Oh my God. Nice of him to admit it.
Is it? No.
It is.
It is. But now it's been pretty easy, and I don't mind being around the smell. I actually kind of like it because it like reminds me of like even more willpower than I thought that I had.
That's really interesting because I can't stand the smell now.
Okay.
Like it went from like love to get the shit the fuck away from me.
And did you stop drinking before you stopped smoking?
I did. I stopped everything cold
At the
turkey,
same time.
which is crazy.
It's like nice to be able to say like this day, you know, because once you start, like I tried the thing of being like, oh, I'll just smoke after 7 p.m. Like that's a slippery slope for me.
Totally.
And you can't be like, oh, I've been weed free for like 9 days after 7 p.m. It's like,
right. And then you're like wanting the day to pass so that you can get to 7 p.m.
Oh my God.
If you're listening to this and you're addicted to something more serious, I'm not saying you should stop cold turkey. I mean, for me, it was doable because I never was addicted to anything dangerous that if I stopped cold turkey, I would have to like get resuscitated.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what worked though.
Yeah.
Did you stop anything else or just weed?
I haven't been drinking for like a really long time, just because I think it was a year after college that Charlotte was like, hey, did you notice that like when you have more than 1 glass of wine, like you cry and you throw up? And I was like, I did not notice that, but yes, that's true. And so, yeah, it wasn't helpful. It didn't make me more fun.
Yeah.
Does alcohol smell bad to you now?
No.
Okay, that's the thing that like, I'm like, oh, get away from me.
Right. No, I guess like tequila a little bit, but I think that's just because I'm like jealous because I'm like, oh, that'd be nice to have some good tequila.
And your husband is not sober from anything. Well, would you
No.
even call it sober?
I would call myself sober.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Because sober means like you haven't had any mind or mood altering chemicals.
Yeah.
And I haven't.
Okay. Like I'll still have a sip of champagne if there's a toast.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say you're sober. I also like
Yeah.
I work a program of sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm sober, but I hate when people call themselves sober and they like do shrooms,
Right.
or like
Yeah.
they're California sober.
Yeah.
Like that's not a thing.
Yeah. No, I would say like weed free or alcohol free or like
Right.
reduction of alcohol. But like, I don't know, since stopping smoking, like there was one night that like Ben was drinking and I was like, I'll try that. And it was just one drink and stuff. And it didn't
Right.
get me like fucked up, but I was like, I feel like that's fine.
Yeah, and it is fine. Like it's totally up to you. For me, I always associated smoking with drinking. So I would never see a point to drink alone without smoking. Like they go
Interesting.
hand in hand.
Okay. And you still go out a fair amount.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I'll go when I have to
Yeah.
a birthday or a wedding.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go to like a party at a bar
Okay.
just because like I don't want to.
There's nothing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just not that fun. I will go out when there's like good music and dancing.
Yeah.
Because I don't need anything to dance. But so what has changed in your life since not smoking?
Not that much. Mm-hmm. Has stuff changed for you?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
But I also, for me, because of the program aspect of it, like took action steps post not smoking. Like I worked on repairing relationships and
Yeah.
looked at things that I did when I was, smoking or drunk or like that were like really mortifying and was like, why did I do that or whatever. Like I had to force myself to look inward and cringe. Like I cringe so hard and I'm curious if you'll get to this point at like episodes early on in my podcast when
Oh my God.
I would like pressure my guests to smoke weed with me. Like it's so mortifying.
I don't think I ever made anybody smoke with me, but I would never record an episode sober.
Oh yeah, never.
Except
I was
for
smoking
there was
during.
1 or 2 episodes for sobriety and sex that I was like, let's see if I can do this. And it was murder to me.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about that repairing relationship step because I'm like, I'm not doing a program, but I would still like to apologize to certain people. But because I'm not like full sober, I'm like, do you have the right to do this?
You always have the right to
Yeah.
apologize to whoever the fuck you want.
I owe a lot of apologies.
I mean, same.
Yeah.
I'm still on an apology tour. But I'm curious for you.
I love how you're flipping the script.
Always. But I'm so curious for you. Like, first of all, when did the not being able to sleep or eat go away, if it has?
Like 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fast, right?
Yeah, it was pretty fast. The sleeping is still kind of difficult, but like, I think that's just because I have a lot of stuff on my mind now.
So what do you do to take the edge off other than vape?
I have supplemented a lot of Tetris.
Okay.
I watched all of the Golden Girls.
Love that
I
for
am
you.
now on the Mary Tyler Moore show.
Amazing.
Highly recommend. It's about a single gal at 30 restarting her life.
Oh, why did I think Mary Tyler Moore was also like the age of the Golden Girls?
Right, because we were so young when she was first presented to us. But yeah, it's a very hip show. Again, not all these shows hold up completely, but has sex changed post weed for you?
Honestly, such a hard question because I did feel like the one benefit from weed that I was still benefiting from was like increased feeling in terms of like physical stuff. But no, I think like once I got over that mentally, I was physically able to like get into sex and enjoy it
Be
and
present
and feel
again.
the feels.
Yeah.
And exactly. What about you?
I mean, my orgasm drought started way before the quitting of the weed. So I can't really combine the two, but I do like sober sex. I think it's fun. Is masturbating still fun for you now that you're a married woman?
Masturbating is always fun. If you lose the fun in masturbating, I don't care if you're married, if you have 8 kids, then you have lost. your life.
Yeah.
Like masturbating is so fun. And it's so fun. I love porn. Like I think people
Really?
oh my God. Yeah. Like I do have like a memory bank in there, like an imagination station or whatever.
Yeah.
But to see, like to watch like a video really just gets me going.
What's your favorite like keyword?
See that I would be arrested if I told you.
Oh my God. I'm scared.
You should be.
Barely legal.
Paralegal?
No, barely legal.
Oh no. Paralegal porn.
Does Steven like watching it too?
He does like watching it. He's like a compilation guy.
Okay. And do you watch together?
No, we have different preferences and we only really watch when we're apart.
Okay.
Not that we like wouldn't watch. We have watched together.
Yeah.
He just likes videos that I'm not as into. Like he loves like a POV. Like I love a storyline. You know, like we're different.
Do you like
strokes.
audio stuff or strictly visual?
I do actually love Dipsy, which is a
Dipsy.
sponsor of my podcast and potentially yours.
Yep.
I love Dipsy, but I like literotica.
I want to do an episode on that because a lot of people have been like reading makes me so horny. And I'm like, okay, but then what do you do with your hands if like you're holding a book?
There's nothing weirder than when you are reading a heavily sex scened book and you know that like your mom has read it and your mother-in-law has read it.
Oh my God. Did they give you the Rex?
No, but like I just know like they read it and I'm just like I'm having such a personal experience with this book as one does when they read a book. You're just like to think of someone else reading it is so disturbing.
Somebody else who birthed you.
Right. Seriously.
Which brings us to the main topic of this episode, which is pregnancy and the road to getting there. And you, on your podcast, you delve into sex, relationships, and vulnerability. And this post of yours about your IVF journey was like one of the most vulnerable posts of yours I've ever seen. A lot of people do struggle to conceive, but I think only in the last few years have people gotten a little more comfortable sharing it. How long into your pregnancy was that post? And did it take a lot?
Yeah, it was when I was like quote unquote safely, because whoever knows, but in my second trimester.
Okay.
I wanted to share my journey so much earlier.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately when your journey involves another human,
Right.
it has to be like negotiated
Two
and
other
agreed.
humans.
Two other humans, exactly. And so I actually was excited to share this because I was like, it's crazy how all you see is like baby coming in the fall or like, look, like little Joseph has joined us, and you never hear any sort of struggle
Thing
and
leading up.
Exactly. And maybe there is no struggle at all, and like great for them. That's amazing. Like my sister didn't have one, but a lot of people do have one and they don't talk about it. And I understand why. They don't owe us anything, but to talk about it is so necessary because it's such a real thing.
And it normalizes it and it makes other people more aware of what you can do if you are going through something similar.
Yeah. Have you ever like gotten anything checked in terms of like potentially thinking about freezing eggs or?
We just did an episode on egg freezing on Diet Starts Tomorrow. So I have been thinking about that a little more. I've never worried about my fertility though, because I have gotten pregnant before. I had an abortion. So that, I don't know, for some reason, I think it would be really easy for me to get pregnant, but I know that you said the same thing, that you thought.
But I had never been pregnant.
Right.
Are you currently on birth control?
I have an IUD.
Okay.
Yeah. And you had been on birth control for the majority of your life.
Forever.
Yeah.
So I really didn't know
Yeah.
what was going on with my shit.
Yeah. I got off of it for 6 months or something just because I was like, oh, like, let's see like how my body does with this. And it was like, it gets pregnant.
Yeah.
That's how it does.
No, that's great though.
Yeah.
It's the perfect situation. Either you get pregnant or you got a period, but both mean that you're on the right track.
Yeah. But also did not want to be pregnant at that time, which is like, haha, universe.
Yeah.
So this might be something I don't know if it's rude to say or something, but I remember you got married and then for a long time it was just you guys having fun and traveling around or whatever. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, they're really taking the time to just enjoy themselves. Like,
Yeah.
but also secretly you were on this journey. How long after the wedding did you guys try to start?
Yeah, that's not rude at all, by the way.
Okay.
I first of all, I wish I had the luxury of truly doing that and not trying. Like, I think just our biological clocks are so fucking rude.
Yeah.
And people tell you, oh my God, if you have a baby after 35, it's geriatric.
It's a geriatric
Like,
pregnancy.
It's so obnoxious. So I wish I had that luxury. And had I gotten married a few years earlier, I probably would have enjoyed this luxurious travel time, which I did enjoy.
Yeah.
But so Steven, who I feel like you need to spend more time with because you guys would vibe. And he's such a dad.
Cute.
He's just like such dad energy. Like
Yeah.
he wanted me to have a baby before we got like literally the day we started officially dating. He was like, so when are we having babies? And so he wanted it really badly and I wanted it too. So, and again, like as I had said in that clip that you're referring to, I literally thought I was going to get pregnant on my wedding night. Like I was like,
Yeah.
let's do this. Except I purposely didn't because I didn't want a Scorpio.
Hilarious.
And then I started trying, I would say a month and a half after my wedding.
So very quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
And like, you know, most people do that who are our age, whether they admit or not. And that's because people delay marriage until they're ready to have kids a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And so that's when I wouldn't say our journey began, but like the confusion started.
Yeah. And were you off the pill at your wedding?
No.
Okay. So it was like a month after you were like, I'm going to get off and then let this thing happen naturally. And then what were some of the side effects to going off the pill?
Well, at first I was like, you know, in my mind, why are people so crazy about getting off the pill? This is so great. I had no side effects. And I was like, I had been in good shape from my wedding. I'd been working out. And so I was like, I still look good. This is cool, you know, and I don't have to take birth control. And then I would say like a few months, between 3 and 6 months after going off the pill, I started to have crazy symptoms of what I know now as PCOS.
Yeah.
Which was just like rapid weight gain, so much acne, major hair loss. And the hair thing is different for everyone, but major hair loss. And I hadn't gotten a period since going off birth control.
Oh, wow. And okay, so you guys, we haven't talked about PCOS yet. So it is Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. It's a problem with hormones that happens during the reproductive years. Sometimes it can happen before. And if you have PCOS, you may not have periods very often, or you may have periods that last many days. You may also have too much of a hormone called androgen in your body. And with PCOS, many small sacs of fluid develop along the outer edge of the ovary. So these are called cysts. The small fluid-filled cysts contain immature eggs, and these are called follicles. So follicles fail to regularly release the eggs, which is why you were probably having trouble.
Exactly.
And did you go to a bunch of doctors, or was there like one that was like, this is it immediately?
I kind of went to a bunch. So we started to see a fertility specialist. So a lot of doctors will tell you aren't even allowed to talk to a fertility person until 6 months of trying.
Yeah.
Which is really dumb, guys. Like, don't listen to these doctors. You know your body better than anyone. If you think something's wrong, get it checked out.
Also, if you're like approaching geriatric age and let's say you wanted to freeze your eggs, like you would want to know the viability of those eggs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we went to a large fertility clinic and they did, you know, a vaginal ultrasound, and they must have seen the PCOS, but they did not tell us because they didn't feel like it was necessary for me to know.
Why?
Because the treatment that they were going to do for us would have worked regardless of
Okay.
the PCOS.
Okay.
So
they're like,
it
just
wasn't
live with this thing.
evil. Like it wasn't an
Yeah.
evil. It was just like an omission of.
But even people who aren't trying to get pregnant, who have PCOS, are trying to treat it because
Right.
of the side effects.
Right. But it was a male doctor and he didn't really care about PCOS, whatever. I don't know. For whatever reason, they didn't tell us.
He's like, you have enough hair.
Yeah. He's like, your extensions look great.
Yeah.
So he put then we tried a bunch of different pre-IVF options, which is called a trigger shot, where you trigger your ovulation and then you have sex in like a timed window of like 72 hours and try to get pregnant. So hot, let me tell you. And we did that a couple times, like I want to say 3 times, and it didn't work. And I was like, well, maybe we should just like go straight to IVF. Instead of at this point thinking that maybe we should get a second opinion, because I didn't know any better. So we met with a smaller fertility clinic, a really amazing one called Spring Fertility. And our first meeting with the doctor there, who by the way is like a New York City girl, she went to Horace Mann. We love her.
Amazing. My rival school, though.
Your rival school.
But my best friend went there, so it's
there
okay.
you go. And she immediately was like, you have PCOS. And I was like, what? Like, why didn't anyone tell me this? Like, you're wrong. Like, blah, blah. Because you hear this word and you're like, oh my God, like I have cancer of the cysts. Like, I had no idea what it meant.
Yeah.
And then we were able to understand kind of what was going on and then like make the informed decisions because we actually knew what was happening to my body.
Yeah. So some people treat PCOS with birth control. How were they treating it for you?
So they weren't, because when you are trying to get pregnant and you have PCOS, you can't really treat it in any way other than your diet. They tell you to like eat keto or like, try to have more proteins and vegetables, because your body doesn't metabolize food the same, which is why there's weight gain usually. Like whatever you eat, it kind of turns into sugar and like carbs. So you're better off eating healthier or whatever, less carbs, less sugar.
Yeah.
So that was really the only way that I could do it, because I was trying to get pregnant. If I weren't trying to get pregnant, they actually treat it with Ozempic sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
They treat it with something called metformin. They treat it.
I have a friend who's on Wegovy for PCOS.
Yeah. And they treat it with all, different
And those people are allowed to take Ozempic versus everybody else who's just doing it.
If I took Ozempic, guess what? I'm allowed, bitch.
Yeah.
But I can't, unfortunately.
Because you're growing a child.
Yeah. Unless they make pregnancy safe Ozempic, in which case call me. And you can sponsor the podcast.
You do not need Ozempic.
I'm just kidding.
No, I know. And is the trigger shot, does that count as IVF?
No. So the trigger shot is like a fertility treatment.
Okay.
It's equal to like IUI, which you might have heard of.
Yes. Wait.
Read the definition. It's waiting for you.
Okay, so the key difference between IUI and IVF is that in IUI, fertilization takes place internally. That is, the sperm is injected directly into the person's uterus. So if fertilization is successful, the embryo implants there as well. With IVF, fertilization takes place externally or outside of the uterus in a lab. And then there's also something called ICI. Have you heard of that one? It's like,
I think so, but tell us.
Intracervical instead. That's what the last I stands for, is instead. The main difference between ICI and IUI is where the sperm is placed. So ICI involves inserting the sperm into the cervix, whereas IUI inserts sperm directly into the uterus. So intracervical insemination is regarded as simpler, less expensive, and lower risk than IUI.
Interesting.
I don't know what the turkey baster counts as.
So the turkey baster is IUI.
Okay.
If you turkey baste yourself, which for anyone who hasn't experienced Thanksgiving, it is a turkey baster is what people use to inject the juices of the turkey back into the turkey. You can if you are wild and crazy enough and you don't mind potentially having quadruplets, you can get the sperm of your partner in a turkey baster. And I have a friend who's done this.
Really?
Successfully.
At home?
At home, and you can shoot it up.
Have you interviewed this person?
Your vagine. I don't think she's open about it.
Oh my God.
And you can get pregnant, but you would have to have a regular period to do so.
Why did she do that?
She did it because she wasn't getting pregnant. Like, they weren't having a lot of sex. They weren't having opportunities to have sex because he traveled a lot for work.
Got it.
So she was like, it's fine. Go on your work trip, but come in this turkey baster first.
Yeah, I feel like I've mostly heard of the turkey baster option for like if there's a sperm donor for like a lesbian couple or something like that.
And like they don't want to like pay $200,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In general, though, IVF has higher success rates than IUI. So what is the trigger shot?
So a trigger shot is when you take a shot that forces you to ovulate. Like it forces your body into an ovulation.
And then just have sex as you normally
Exactly.
would.
Whereas an IUI is timed around your ovulation, which is already happening.
IVF also is the most highly recommended method of women over the age of 40. And additionally, IVF gives the fertility doctor and the intended parents more control over the number of embryos, which is what you were saying, transferred into the uterus, which lowers the risk of multiple births.
Yeah, they used to just throw a bunch of embryos in there at once. They don't do that anymore.
Oh my God. Well, that's how Octomom became a thing.
Is it? I didn't know that.
It's true.
That's crazy. I thought it was like a natural phenomenon.
No, but still phenomenal to grow and raise that many kids. Okay. So we've talked about IVF, kind of. There are several types of IVF. There's IVF plus a frozen embryo transfer, which is FET. IVF plus elective single embryo transfer, which is ESET. IVF plus intracytoplasmic sperm injection, ICSI. And when using this one, the scientist picks up a single sperm and injects it into each egg using a microscopic needle. There's IVF plus an egg donor, IVF plus a donor sperm, natural IVF, and then mini IVF, which is minimal stimulation. So I think a lot of people, like I know when I've heard about IVF, I'm like, wait, there are so many things being referred to as IVF. Like I have a friend who's got a girlfriend and they're both women and she's like, I want to be able to do IVF with my girlfriend. I'm like, wait, what? Like, how do you know that she's even having pregnancy issues? It's like, that's not what that means. It means implanting the sperm into the embryo separate from the body.
Right.
And then putting it back in. Let's read the definition. IVF is a complex process that involves retrieving eggs from ovaries and manually combining them with sperm in a lab for fertilization. Several days after fertilization, the fertilized egg, now called an embryo, is placed inside a uterus. It doesn't have to be yours, could be a surrogate. And I already said the other stuff. So what was the process like for you? And when did the doctor be like, okay, it's time for IVF?
So our doctor actually was like, you could get pregnant on your own with PCOS. But there was a gene situation, being Jewish, you have a lot of genes that are not great to pass down a lot of the time. And so because of the gene, we were like, fuck it, let's just skip straight to IVF. There's no point in, torturing ourselves.
IVF, you can help with gene selection as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can remove any, genes that you're worried about. And,
but it's not CRISPR. You can't be like green eyes, definitely.
Oh, no. You cannot add and choose genes that you want. You can only take away like little evil genes
for sure
that do bad things. And so that's what ultimately we were like, okay, IVF. And then we decided to go with the smaller clinic because they, told us the truth.
Yeah.
And so the process was, we definitely got lucky in I guess in relation to what a lot of people go through where they're doing IVF for years and years.
Yeah.
The whole process took like about 3 to 4 months. We did the egg retrieval, which in my experience was the shittiest part because when you have PCOS and you have an egg retrieval, you get a bajillion eggs, like only you know, a handful of which are actually good eggs, because remember we talked about the over follicles. Yeah. And because you get so many eggs, whereas a normal person going through IVF who's like, I don't know, 30 or 20 gets like 20 to 30 eggs. When you have PCOS, you get like 50 to 70 eggs. Your stomach gets so big and inflamed and bloated. So you literally look 6 months pregnant. And then afterwards, you're at risk of something called OHSS.
Yes.
Which is it on your list?
It is.
Let's hear.
It is ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. It's an iatrogenic complication of assisted reproduction technology. The syndrome is characterized by cystic enlargement of the ovaries and a fluid shift from the intravascular to the third space. Not the first, not the second, but a secret third space.
A secret.
Due to increased capillary permeability and ovarian neoangiogenesis. I'm so glad I didn't go to business school.
Oh my God.
Medical school.
Me too. Well, both. But I will say that happened. And so that was shitty and
painful.
And so
you couldn't walk for like a week.
Couldn't walk for like a week.
Yeah.
Most people are like, good, a day or two after back at work. Couldn't walk for a week. And then after that, luckily, thank goodness, smooth sailing.
Yeah.
We, you know, got the embryos. Wasn't as many as we'd hope. Never is, by the way. Even if you don't have PCOS, the drop-off rate is crazy. They're like, oh my God, you have so many embryos. And then they're like, oh, sorry, a few of them like went out to lunch and didn't come back. And then they're like, oh, and a couple others like took a vacation. So like now you have this many. And you're like, what? It's always a horrible drop-off. And so that's another thing. Like you really can't compare with other friends doing IVF.
Yeah.
That's the worst question that people will DM me. How many embryos did you get? I'm like, that is more like I'd sooner tell you how many carats on my engagement ring. Like that is just so invasive.
Do people usually do multiple retrievals?
Yes. People do multiple rounds.
Okay. And did you or no?
I did not.
Okay.
The only reason I did not is because my experience the first time around was so heinous that I really didn't want to go through it again. My body was not having it. And it took so long to recover from like the bloat. And my uterus was so enlarged that I couldn't enjoy sex for like months. It was horrible.
And I hate that for you.
I hate. It was horrible. I mean, thank God for masturbation because it doesn't really affect my
so
uterus.
that was still okay.
That was still okay. Thank goodness. Yeah, but nothing up at all.
Oy.
It was a bummer.
Steven,
and
go to the other room and watch porn.
Seriously. So I didn't want to go through that again. In a perfect world, I would have done 2 rounds. It is what it is. And then we just got like excited and we were like, let's go. We did a round. We have embryos. Let's do this. And we did the first transfer and knowing that it was probably not going to work the first time. It never does. And somehow, some way, by the grace of God, it did.
He latched on.
He latched.
I hope that bodes well for his future latching.
I hope so too.
Did you freeze the rest of the little guys?
We did. So you don't really have a choice. You have to freeze them.
Okay.
So even the embryo that is inside me right now was frozen right after.
Okay.
Because if you don't, they keep developing like in a lab and it's scary. It's creepy. I don't know what happens. I just know that you have to like stop them from continuing.
Let's see if they can be.
Like you can't you can't transfer an embryo that's older than like I think 6 days, but I could be wrong with this information.
Let's see if you're right. Okay, so Google University says in the case of IVF, the fertilized eggs or human blastocysts, they're called blastocysts, normally hatch out of their shell and start to implant about 1 or 2 days after the 5th day of the IVF blastocyst transfer. This means the implantation takes place about 7 to 8 days after the fertilization of the egg. So yeah, you said 6, 7, 8. Fine.
Wow. I can't believe that.
You had your doctor on your podcast, right?
I did.
Yeah.
She's such a queen.
Okay, so this is just a little about the IVF process. So it says traditionally the ovaries are moderately stimulated to mature a maximum number of eggs and can typically produce 3 to 10 mature eggs. Daily injections of hormone drugs stimulate the ovaries. Oh yes, we didn't talk about your injections. So it's not just like you go in and they retrieve. You have to inject yourself
how many days leading up till the egg retrieval?
I think it's like 8 to 12 days, depending on how your body responds to the injections.
And this was so funny because in your post, you were like, yeah, we would run home from dinners. I'm like, if I had a reason to stay home, like you could not catch me at a dinner.
Yeah. No, it was horrible. I never wanted to be at any of the dinners, but some of them were nice with friends.
Mommy will be social.
Yeah.
So the daily injections, this usually takes about 10 days of a small needle injection in your stomach. The hormone drugs can cause the follicles to grow, which increase the hormone level of estrogen, which then promotes the uterine lining to grow as well, which prepares the lining for embryo implantation. Traditional IVF collects more eggs than other quote-unquote gentle procedures, which increases the chance of pregnancy. Approximately 2/3 of the eggs become fertilized, and about half of those fertilized eggs develop into good quality embryos. Did Stephen have to get his sperm checked before doing any of this?
Yeah. And like every man should.
Yeah.
Because you never know.
You don't want to waste the egg with
some good for nothing sperm.
Some little loser sperm.
Yeah.
And like obviously you guys are doing this process together. Did he have any hesitation? Like you're going through a lot more medical stuff, but was he comfortable with the process of like going into that room?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. It was such a burden that he had to jerk off once.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for men who go through IVF with their wives. They have to jerk off once.
Isn't it weird that like they get to have an orgasm during the process?
Literally.
Like there is no step of your process where it's like, oh yeah, well, like it hurt, but like at least I came.
Yeah. No.
None of that.
Nothing. And he thought he almost fucked that up. He was like, oh my God, I feel like I didn't make it into the thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think we're fine.
I think you're good.
But I thought it was really important to give him a role in the process. A lot of women are like, I'm doing it myself. And that's fine. All power to you. But I was like, I'm going to make him do the injection shots in my stomach because then he has to, be concerned about like, oh, is it in the fridge? Do I have to take it out?
Yeah.
Let it thaw? Like, you do that, honey, and I will just be your whatever guinea pig.
He feels more that he's part of the project too. I wish I had a percentage of OHSS, but I had a question about the OHSS because you were in so much pain. Have you ever experienced stuff similarly, like when you're at the gyno and like, when they're like, you're gonna feel a pinch if it's like a pap smear or any of that? Did you have like crazy cramps?
No, I didn't.
So it doesn't relate to that.
It doesn't relate to that. It's just you're just like so inflamed is the way that I would describe it best. And then if you're not actively trying to have sex, you don't feel pain. But if you do, then you are in pain.
How long did it take for the pain to go away?
Probably like 2 months. But okay, so you'll find this interesting.
Yeah.
My doctor let me go on birth control in the interim. What? Because birth control, for as much as everyone hates it, it's really good for PCOS. It has the cocktail which you need in order to like subside. So the birth control actually helped my uterus get smaller after.
So this is post injections, post egg retrieval. And then you went on birth control for like how long?
It was literally like not even 2 weeks.
Interesting.
Which I probably didn't need to do it, but it just gave me peace of mind because it just made me think that it was shrinking my uterus.
PCOS of mind.
PCOS of mind. I love that.
Interestingly, what?
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh, no, I forgot to mention that you also get a period after an egg retrieval.
Oh, I think that would be a very good thing to know because it might scare a bunch of people.
Yeah, no, the mark of like when you're you finally start to feel good again post egg retrieval, PCOS or not, once you get your period.
Amazing. But then that's your last period for a while, hopefully. Yeah. So the Society for Reproductive Technology, SART, states that people under 35 who are trying to get pregnant, the percentage of live births via IVF is 55% or 55.6%, Live births per first embryo transfer is 41.4%. With a later embryo transfer, the live births percentage is around 47%. So in some cases, it's better to wait.
That's interesting.
Interesting. If you're not comfortable answering this next one, you don't have to. But do you know what the general cost of IVF is?
Oh, I'm so comfortable. It can cost anywhere from like $20,000 to the limit does not exist. Like
Okay.
it could cost $1 million if you have to do a bajillion rounds.
Yeah.
If you have to I have friends who were going through IVF for 3 years. I imagine that cost is at least $500,000.
Yeah. So it's not super accessible to everyone.
Not in the slightest.
Not even in the
we
slightest.
were
Yeah.
so grateful. So the only reason we actually were so gung-ho about IVF because we did not get any help from our parents in paying for it.
Oh my mazel.
Thank you. But the only reason that we were, you'll take back the mazel when you hear this, is because we thought that our insurance was going to cover it.
Hilarious.
We were told by our insurance company that they would cover it.
Yeah.
Since then, they have covered maybe 3% of it. Given us back like literally 3% of it. So we are still down from the costs, unfortunately. And we get more bills every day from it. So it really is like whatever you think it's going to cost, probably double it.
But then you get the baby.
But then you get the baby and it's so great. And then you have to spend the rest of your money on the baby. So you will go broke.
Right. So you did freeze the other eggs, and does that mean the next time, if you guys are ever to try again, you would be using from that same batch?
Yeah, so we froze the embryos. The only difference, I didn't know the difference. The difference is like the embryos have a higher chance than just eggs alone.
That's why Ariana asked Tom Sandoval for his
Exactly,
sample, which would have been shitty.
Because he sucks.
He sucks.
So thank God.
But yes.
She should do it with her gay bestie.
No, she's got a new boyfriend too.
Oh.
But also, yeah, maybe Brad or
honestly,
Logan.
It's always safer to do it with a friend. But
embryos are more viable.
Yeah, so we would use another embryo that we made through IVF frozen.
So they're both kind of twins.
They are.
Yeah.
Like I actually watched a TikTok of
same.
Oh, was it the girl and the boy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were like, we're twins, but we're not.
But we're born like years apart because we're from the same batch.
Yes.
I think that's so cute. But okay, so as an astrology person, would you say that those twins actually would have different signs? You know what I mean?
I know what you're saying, but because it's based on when they're born, yes, they have different signs.
Yeah.
But like they are kind of similar astrology wise, but no.
Conception doesn't have to do with astrological sign. You said something in your post that I thought was so sweet. If this experience has taught me anything, it's to choose your life partner very wisely. Can you expand?
He made me write that.
Did he?
Just kidding. No, I could, like, it brought us so much closer. They say there's 5 things that you should go through with a partner, or not you should go through, God forbid, but that bring you much closer to your significant other if you go through them. And one of them is IVF. The other is like death of a parent. I think another is like moving. There's just like a bunch of things that.
There's money problems on there.
I'm sure.
I'm thinking of Failure to Launch too, when she did you ever see that movie?
Yeah, but
where
like,
Sarah Jessica Parker's hired to like date Matthew McConaughey because he's like in a rut, and she like tries to get closer with him by having her dog die and having him get her through that. It's like a bonding mechanism.
Interesting.
I'm gonna cut this part out.
No, I love that. I love that. But it brought us a lot closer, and it made me realize like how great of a dad he will be, and a partner he was to me. And he did things throughout the IVF process. Like he got me little gifts, like to keep me going, and that was really sweet.
Pre-push presents. And you said that there was that difficulty with sex for a little, but how has pregnancy sex been?
You know, it's been good and bad. And the reason it's been bad is because Steven had back surgery this summer. So
Poor guy.
literally made my whole pregnancy about him. And it's so rude. And
He's like, get on top. You're like, absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually into being on top, if you remember correctly.
Oh, I do.
But
because of the grinding.
But the last time I was on top, I forgot that he had the back surgery.
Oh no.
So I set his back.
Oh no. Oh my God, that sucks.
Yeah. So it's just way less frequent, unfortunately. But when it happens, it's nice.
And how do you feel like in your pregnant body? Is it comfy? Are
No.
you glowing?
No, I'm not glowing and it's not comfy. And like people who say that it is, that's so wonderful for them. And I'm genuinely happy for them. But it's not sexy. I think if I were one of those like people who only gained weight in my belly, then I would be like, oh my God, like my body's so sexy still. Just my belly is a little belly. But I feel it everywhere. And it just makes me feel so heavy all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, from the outside, you look like one of those people, but I understand that feeling of being like, I'm carrying more than I'm used to. And it feels like it's weighing me down.
Yeah. And also, like, my boobs have never been this big. I thought I had big boobs before.
You did.
I really thought. And now I'm like, I feel like I can speak to a whole other group of women now.
Yeah.
And like, all power to you, big boob women.
Maybe back surgery for you soon.
Literally.
And you said you've never gone through an orgasm drought.
No, but that's because, well, no, I actually did in like a past relationship.
Oh, interesting. And it was because of like the lack of connection with that person, you think?
I think so, but also lack of patience on their end.
See, that's one thing that I'm like, I know it's not Ben's fault because he's always just like,
yeah, no, they got to be
I
patient.
feel so bad for you. Let's do this.
Yeah, like, I'm so sorry you had to have sex with me until I had an orgasm.
Yeah, no, I literally put out that post of like, hello, I'm not coming or whatever. And even though we'd been talking about it for months, he texted me. He's like, I'm so sorry, Remy. We'll figure it out. I'm like, has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
It has to do with me.
It's really sweet.
Do you have an assignment for me to hopefully bring this bad boy back?
You know, this is what I do, so I'm not saying that it'll definitely work for you, but like put something in between your legs and like grind, grind and hump.
Yeah.
Like it's like the bare bones of masturbation, I feel.
Yeah. I said this on last episode. Don't you find a Tempur-Pedic pillow would be really good because it's like nice and solid?
You know what? Actually, no. And the reason is because you really need to get in between the crevice of your vagine. Okay. So I think you need something you can kind of pull, like rope-esque.
Oh.
So it's actually better if it's thinner, but not too thin.
Like a blanket? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a really good assignment. I will try and rope. That sounds fun. I'm like actually really excited for that.
Fun. I also like to do it with underwear on.
Okay. I would too. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Lindsay. That makes me feel good. Before we close this episode up, there are other reasons why people may want to do IVF. Those are a fallopian tube damage or blockage, where eggs move from the ovaries to the uterus through the fallopian tubes. If both tubes get damaged or blocked, that makes it hard for an egg to drop down and be fertilized or for an embryo to travel to the uterus. So that makes sense. Ovulation disorders. If ovulation doesn't happen or doesn't occur often, fewer eggs are available to be fertilized by the sperm. Endometriosis, which we need to talk about more on this podcast. We only did in one episode, but this condition happens when the tissue that's like the lining of the uterus grows outside of the uterus. So endometriosis often affects the ovaries, uterus, and fallopian tubes. There are uterine fibroids. Fibroids are tumors in the uterus. Most often, they're not cancer. They're common in people in their 30s and 40s. Fibroids can cause a fertilized egg to have trouble attaching to the lining of the uterus. Previous surgery to prevent pregnancy. So an operation called tubal ligation involves having the fallopian tubes cut or blocked to prevent pregnancy for good. If you wish to conceive after tubal ligation, IVF may help. It's nice to know that there are still these options. It might be an option if you don't want or can't get surgery to reverse the tubal ligation.
If there are issues with sperm, a low number of sperm or unusual changes in their movement, size, or shape can make it hard for sperm to fertilize an egg. If medical tests finds issues with the sperm, a visit to an infertility specialist might be needed to see if there are treatable problems or other health concerns. Unexplained infertility, this is when tests can't find the reason. IVF could be good for that. A genetic disorder, like we were talking about, if you or your partner is at risk of passing on a genetic disorder to your child, your healthcare team might recommend getting a procedure that involves IVF, and it's called pre-implantation genetic testing.
And I recommend everyone do genetic testing.
Was there like a week that they were like, we're removing the gene right now, or they were like, we haven't found the gene?
Yeah, no, they removed the gene prior to the transfer.
Bye, gene.
Bye.
They're checked for certain genetic problems. Still, not all of these disorders can be found. Embryos that don't appear to contain genetic problem can be placed in the uterus. And then finally, a desire to preserve fertility due to cancer or other health conditions. So cancer treatments such as radiation or chemo can harm fertility. If you're about to start treatment for cancer, IVF could be a way to still have a baby in the future. Also, I would say if you're somebody that has a uterus but wants to transition and take testosterone eventually, like maybe do IVF or egg freezing or something before you go through that process. And then I just had a final question of, if this didn't work, were you guys thinking, oh, we would keep trying this? Or like, was adoption ever on the radar or anything like that?
I think we thought we would try all the embryos that we have for sure.
Yeah.
And then we would see, but adoption, not that, like, adoption's amazing and it's such a great option, but it would have been our last choice.
Okay.
Because we would have given all of our money to potential surrogate. You know, we would have done whatever we could.
Now, adoption can be amazing. I've also heard it can be pretty traumatic for people. So if you have the means.
Yeah.
So how pregnant are we right now?
We're 6 months.
So exciting. Well, I can't wait to see this guy when he comes out.
I hope he's cute.
Do you have names yet?
We do.
Great.
What if I told you?
No, don't tell me.
I would never. But you know what I mean? Wouldn't that be so
For some reason,
uncomfortable?
that makes me feel like
it's because we're
it's
Jewish.
A jinx.
You know, it is a jinx in the Jewish religion.
Okay. Well, nobody jinx this baby. Everybody knock on wood, or as Nanny would say, touch your ass.
Ooh, I love that.
Lindsay, I have to ask you this question after a sexual experience, which we've had some sexual talk today. Did you finish?
I always finish when I'm with you, Remy.
I love you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And can you tell everybody where they can find you and your podcast?
Yes. Wherever you listen to podcasts, We Met at Acme. On Instagram, We Met at Acme, or my personal Lindsey Mets.
Yay. Are you going to change last name ever?
Not in a way that anyone would know that I have.
Not for the internet. Lindsay, thank you again. And you guys, we'll see you next time on How Come. Goodbye.
Bye.
Yay.
It's not you, it's me. I try so hard to finish honestly. They say you'll know when you go all the way from A right down to O. Oh no, I think that I've still got a ways to go. Oh, I'm sick of this and I have got to know. How come? How come? How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help, 'cause I can't do it by myself. I wanna jizz